Hey everyone, I'm Gevin,
And I'm Dave.
and welcome to episode 10 of Lowlights.
So the first thing we wanted to say this week, in honor of our 10th episode, is thank you again to everybody
Yes.
who's left a review, who's tuning in, who's subscribed to this podcast. Gavin and I don't totally understand podcast rankings. We don't totally understand the podcast charts. But we did see that recently we were trending on the charts on
Yeah.
Apple Podcasts, I believe. We were tied with Roger Stone with his podcast, I think. And if you don't know who he is, he's not somebody that Gavin and I are big fans of. But
Well, Dave, I was going to say that's a low bar. It's a low bar. Come on.
It's a low bar, but it is a testament to the fact that we started this with the hopes that some of you all might listen, and we're so touched and appreciative that you are. And so, tell people about the podcast, send it to your friends, send it to any, especially young men in your lives who you think could benefit from it. And we're going to try to keep this rolling and keep some great guests coming. And so, speaking of, we're going to try something a little different this week. Instead of doing highlights and talking about the week in sports now, we're actually just going to get straight into the interview. We have got a great guest lined up this week, and so stick around as always at the after the interview, because we are still going to do spotlights and highlight some moments from the interview that we thought were interesting, and we are still going to talk about the week in sports at the end of the podcast. We're just not going to do it right now. So with that, Gevin, who is our great guest this week?
Dave, our guest this week is someone who has known me since I was just a wee lad, many years before we met each other. I know him as Coach Jerrell, but the world knows him as Jerrell Pippens. He's a former defensive back for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, where he played college ball. He's played in the NFL for the Chicago Bears and the San Diego Chargers. He was my sports performance coach when I was 12 years old. He had me pulling sleds, running cone drills, ladders, lifting, running 40s. Got me ready. He got me to the league. I'll say that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And maybe besides Leland Melvin, one of our past guests, has probably had one of the most interesting post-playing careers. Being a sports performance coach, not that crazy. A lot of former players do that, obviously. But since then has become a budding actor with roles in TV shows like Murder in the First on TNT, and in movies like The Wrong Roommate on Lifetime. It was pretty cool seeing him on screen. I think Vivica A. Fox was also in that movie, so that was pretty cool on his IMDb.
Mm-hmm.
But
a legend in her own right, yeah,
indeed. But he's just an awesome person. It's gonna be an awesome interview. So let's get into it. All right, we're back with the man himself, Jerrell Pippens, athlete, actor, coach, model. Is there anything else I'm missing?
This is all out of necessity, though. You got to do your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel you. So writer and
As you
producer.
guys are doing now.
Right. No,
Yes.
that's true.
Mhm.
It's true. It's true.
Mhm.
Well, thank you, Jerrell, for coming on. It's really cool to be doing this with you. We told our listeners all about you already. So let's just jump right into the conversation. Jerrell, you grew up in Philly. You grew up during the Randall Cunningham era. So maybe take us back. Take us back to those days, to when you were growing up in Philly and watching Randall Cunningham and the Birds ball out. Were your early football dreams to play for the Eagles one day?
And I actually had a visit with them pre-draft, and
Oh, wow.
that's where I didn't get nervous until I went in there, because it was one of those things, you're younger, you dream about it. Then I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I speak into existence? Because you walk into the Eagles facility and you see, to your point, you see this big picture of Randall Cunningham, and you're like, and I was on my visits. I was good. I'm a great interviewer. I can, I was schooled on this at Nebraska in pre-draft for my coaches. So you go and prepare, but that went out the window when I walked into the Eagles facility, because to answer your question, you see Randall Cunningham, you see the Jeremiah Trotters, you see the late great Reggie White, Jerome Brown. One of my biggest muses, everyone knows about Deion Sanders and Darrell Green, but Eric Allen, man, I wore number 21. Yeah, I wore number 21 in Pop Warner. You know, most people, and of course, Dion 21 is like, no, it's Eric. Eric is in the Hall of Fame. He was inducted. This I had a little moment. That's my childhood. Like, wow. So to answer your question, I grew up in a tight knit neighborhood, inner city. We had our negatives, but there were a lot of World War II veterans and Vietnam veterans, males who came home from war, and whatever they had, whatever they had, they were able to buy some small row homes. And my neighborhood was one of the row homes areas, but a lot of great men who came home from war and raised their families. And not too far were the Italian families, old school. You know, you had the racism wasn't as bad as it was, you know, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, but there was a lot of principles, values, old school Catholic churches, old school Baptist churches. We were raised by a lot of old people, you know, and they loved the Eagles. To your point, I grew up on Gang Green defense. My Pop Warner team, we had the Eagles uniforms. We were called the Winfield Hawks, but our logo and everything, we had the bird or the feather on the helmet. I'm eagled out. So that's why I said I visited with Green Bay. I visited with the Chargers. I had conversations with a few other teams. I was good. I walked into that facility, man. I didn't see I'm sounding now was, you know. So yeah, and Randall being a black quarterback at the time, you can imagine as a black man. Of course, I love Joe Montana, man. I love Boomer Esiason. I remember early on Mark Rippon, and you just loving football. But to see this guy flying through the air, jumping over people, throwing, he can punt the ball 100 yards. I love Lamar Jackson, love Michael Vick, and I'm sure they'll tell you too. Jalen Hurts, of course, Ben. But before all that, it was the one and only Randall, and that he paved the way. And him and Buddy Ryan, we loved him. You know, he'll punch you in your face. Obviously, we knew that. We knew that before the punch, Buddy. He represented the spirit of Philly. We're very blue collar. Darryl Dalton and those guys from the Phillies, you know, he represented that. But we loved him because he took a chance on a unconventional black quarterback way before it was
That's
cool,
true.
way before it was popular.
And look who
Reggie
came
White,
after him,
really great
Donovan
tradition.
McNabb.
Yep.
Donovan, you know, Eagles have a great tradition of that.
Yes.
And I'm not gonna lie, you go outside when I was younger, to answer your question, Gevin, in the neighborhood, and usually you play pickup football, you know. So everyone wants to be a wide receiver or something like that. Man, he had our neighborhood. Everyone came out for football. A lot more people wanted to be a quarterback because of Randall. So rep- representation matters, and we'll get to that. We will get to that in TV and film in a minute where I'm at now. Representation. Even you seeing you guys in the White House in your story, Dave, you know, okay, baseball's not for me. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. A lot of people will talk about this in the McGevin mental health.
Yeah.
You put your whole identity into one thing.
Yeah.
I'm this thing. And
Right.
this thing could lead to the White House.
Your story of having that moment where you're pinching yourself and you didn't think this was possible. I mean, I think that's how pretty much all of us feel when you get to the White House. Like, you know, I thought it was okay, and I thought it wasn't the first speech I'd ever written, the first speech I wrote in the White House. But then when my boss at the time, Sarah Hurwitz, back in 2015, said, "All right, Miss Obama would like to sit down with you and talk about the speech." And we started walking through the White House. I was like, "Ooh, I might pass out. This."
Michelle Obama was your Randall Cunningham.
She was my Randall Cunningham. Yeah, exactly. But you know, but it's funny that you say that. But I'm actually interested, Jerrell, to back up a little bit from those NFL interviews. And so you're playing. You know, you go through Pop Warner. You grow up in this blue collar town. You know, it sounds like you have a really supportive community around you. How did you end up at Nebraska? I mean, that's far from Philly. That's not nearby. Yeah. So what was that journey like? And when did are there moments that stick out? You know, when did you think it was realistic for you to go and be a college player?
Well, what had happened was my mom could vouch. because she's going to listen to this. This is real talk. When I was 11, my first Pop Warner coach, Kenny Atney, God rest his soul. And this is it's not me just doing the prima donna thing. No, he looked at me at 11 after my first game. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and I had a bunch of tackles. Man, something just lit up. I didn't know what the heck. I was playing corner, but I had like 15 tackles. So that'll tell you something. He said, you have a nose for the football. You have what's called football savvy. And this was going to happen. I said, well, he said, you're going to play in the NFL. And then he said, after in the off season, you're going to run track. I don't care who, you're going to run track. You're going to get your behind on that field. And then my defensive backs coach ended up being a guy named Malcolm Pace, who became my club coach. And Kenny at the time before us, played semi-pro football and had some trials, I think, with the Jets and the Giants back in the day. So he knew his stuff. When he said you're going to play in the NFL, he's saying it from not the couch, from being out there and seeing the starting safeties and corners. Yeah. But he played with a guy named Ron Brown, a wide receiver who was pretty good in his day as well. I think Ron Brown went to Brown University. And Ron Brown went on to become a coach at Nebraska, a receivers coach. And when I was 12, Kenny said, yeah, my boy Ron Brown, he's coaching at Nebraska. Maybe we just talked, a little bit. And in 8th grade, Nebraska, I guess, was winning their national championships when I was younger. And they were great, yeah. So, and obviously that's why knowing now what I know about TV contracts, that meant a lot. They came on the East Coast a lot. Them, Notre Dame, of course, your Syracuse's and your Virginia Tech's, Penn State's regionally. Because the TV contracts, the West Coast games come on late. But so I was able to watch Nebraska, because of those TV contracts. And I told my mom in 8th grade, they were on the helmet was on the front of Sports Illustrated. She could tell you. And I said, Mom, I think I'm going to. And we're like, okay, yeah, all right. Now, she didn't say no, but she just said, okay. And I went on through to high school, my first high school, Overbrook High School. That's where Will Smith went. That's where Will Chamberlain went. Um, Domingo, the actor who's blowing up now, he went there. Buford Blue to Ashland. Domingo went to Overbrook. Great, but not to throw Overbrook under the bus on a public platform. I love the high school, but it was losing its luster. And I had an opportunity to transfer to another high school, which is West Philadelphia Catholic High School. And I went there. Football wasn't working out the way I wanted to. I got hurt my junior year because this is a long story. I played Pop Warner football all the way up to 15, because I didn't want to play Overbrook. Went my junior year, we transferred, it all worked out. I missed the whole junior year. I had a shoulder injury. All I had was indoor, outdoor season, junior year, indoor, outdoor season, senior year for track, and one season for football.
Whoa.
I did okay in football, but my team went 0-10.
Well, that doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. But I still had offers. I still did my thing. In New York, Wagner inquired Kutztown. LaSalle had a football program. Westchester. Nothing wrong with that. D2. But I knew in my heart, per Kenny's example, per my Pop Warner career, I can play major D1. So we proceeded. I went into this crazy zone in track my senior year, indoor and outdoor, like a man possessed. And I seriously, I went from pretty good in Philly and Pennsylvania to like one of the best in the country in the 400 hurdles and the 400 and the 110 hurdle. Yeah, I just went into as they say, lock in. I didn't say that then, but I locked in. And near the latter part of my senior year, which is not traditional, I said, oh, maybe I'll go D2. Nothing wrong with it. After the Penn Relays, my senior year, I ran like the second fastest time in America in the hurdles. And my mailbox, the voicemail, the calls just went crazy. It was like a movie. It was like Purdue, Pittsburgh, Auburn, I believe, Florida State, who was one of my top two, Nebraska, off the top of my head, Villanova. And ultimately, Nebraska offered me pretty much what amounted to a full scholarship. In baseball, it's broken up and track is broken up with men. but they were able to do some things to say, hey, they equal it out almost to 100%. And we will allow you to walk on the football team. If the football coach says you suck, stay over here on the track. But yeah, we'll see. But that was a part of the deal that my mother, my grandmother, and my family, kind of negotiated with Billy Maxwell, God rest his soul, the sprint coach. And to make a long story longer, I go in and I actually go to spring ball, our red shirt. And I remember one practice, I hit a guy named Bobby Newcomb. Eric Crouch threw the ball to him. I hit Bobby Newcomb so hard. Right. And Bobby Newcomb was still there because Bobby played receiver. I went to receiver. And Coach Solis cursed me out so bad because this is a Heisman Trophy candidate. It's just, I'm like, yo, I don't know. I'm just hitting people. And he cursed me out. But after the practice, he says, yo, you got something. But you have to know how to control it. So I want you to really pay attention to special teams. And I'm liking when now he knows my name. Before I was just a walk-on. And that's when I started to get calls from the football office, and they say, yo, I think this kid's got something. And I transitioned my eventually track scholarship to a football scholarship. And then from, I guess, after the Rose Bowl we played, that's when I got on the map with football with the scouts playing in the Rose Bowl. I had like 3 tackles against the best college football team ever. Sorry, Nebraska fans, they're going to kill me for that. But Miami. Look, man, Sean Taylor wasn't even on the defense. He was on special teams. That's how good this team was. Sean Taylor wasn't on the starting 11 of that team. I know my alum are going to be like, oh, mid-90s. I get it. I can't speak for the mid-90s. I was still drinking chocolate milk in the morning. Sorry, I don't know that. But for my Nebraska alum, I felt that Miami team.
Oh yeah,
literally. Man, and that's when the scout says, yo, you can ball. So that's when I legitimately became an NFL prospect. And that's my long drawn out story of how I got to Nebraska. It was a track scholarship. He spotted me at the Penn Relays, Billy Maxwell.
And I think what's so crazy about that story that you just shared is like, you hear plenty of times people who play on defense, maybe they're like, okay, I might not have a shot at the NFL starting at corner. So let me pour my all into special teams. And somehow they find their way, maybe one day, to a starting role on an NFL defense. But you did not just switch to a different position in football. You straight up switched to a different sport and still somehow found your way then back to football and eventually to the NFL. I think that's just such a crazy story.
It's amazing.
And I've never heard that before. I don't think I've ever even heard you tell that story before.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah, Gevin, we'll get to that mental health thing. You probably didn't know what I was going through. But my grandmother, God rest her soul, she told me 2007, after all that, when I was coming out of the NFL.
Yeah.
I was a little pissed off. I wanted to play 12 years and do the Tom Brady thing. But she says, Jerrell, you need to write a book one day.
Mm-hmm.
She's seen it all. And she was like, you need to write a book. And I will one day, and she, as I promised her.
No, and I know there's a lot more we want to cover. We're definitely going to get to mental health and to so many other aspects of your story, but wanted to take a quick detour now that we're talking about your college playing career. Jerrell, there have been a lot of developments to college football since you played. NIL changes the transfer portal, and just this week, the news that came out that schools can finally, now that a judge approved the payment plan, schools can now actually start paying their players directly. So just curious if you have any thoughts about the changes that you've seen in college football and college sports more broadly. Do you think these are good things? Where do you see the next sort of few years in college sports going?
I love it. I know it has its critics because I grew up on the movie The Program. I grew up on Shaq's movie Blue Chips. I grew up on this was me trying to understand what I'm about to get into, growing up. Right. Friday Night Light. Maybe you grew up on the series, the movie, you want to spin, put Booby in. I grew up on those. He Got Game, and you see this, and then you read about it, and then you really see the machine. I mean, my first semester, I told my mom I don't think I'm going to make it because I was intimidated. I said, this is a freaking machine. What the heck? This is multi-million dollar. They are not playing. And with that being said, because there's so much money, like I talked about, I didn't know that I was the recipient of a great TV deal with being exposed to watching Nebraska. Like you said, staying up late to watch USC or San Diego State with Marshall Faulk. That was because of a TV deal. I didn't know that. I'm just watching it. And now I'm like, whoa, ESPN/ABC, NBC, and Nebraska, we're on a different network every week, national TV. Thank God. The business side of, yeah, my mother and my family were able to see, maybe 80% of my games because of that, because of the TV deals. And when I was inside the machine, and I love my alma mater, I love college sports, obviously. I mean, it changed my life, but I'm like, yeah, there's something missing. And I just think that it's good. I know right now it's going to be chaotic initially, as any new thing is. In my opinion, though, I think financial literacy for these men and women have to start now, if not in high school. If, like me, you say to a young man or young woman, and they say, hey, I want to play college sports. I think in high school and at these colleges, it has to be financial literacy. You have to learn about your tax write-offs. You have to learn about your tax breaks. You have to learn how to set up your trust, your life insurance, how to save.
You have to understand
Yes.
who to give the power to control your assets too, because
Assets.
unfortunately, too many times athletes, and others who come into money, maybe even lottery winners sometimes, it's like this switch flips and they don't know, like to your point, they don't have the tools to know how to manage this vast amount of money that they suddenly have. And suddenly a bunch of people are showing up around them, offering their help, and not all of them have their best interests at heart.
Yeah. So, and then some of it comes from a good space. You just feel, man, these are the people that pick me up and drop me off.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, you want to help. You want to help them.
You're emotional.
Pay it forward and pay it back.
And you have to learn how to be more logical. And so, shout out to Nebraska. They were big on mental health. They sent me to a therapist per all the Lawrence Phillips stuff and some of the controversy that you heard. They said we got to get some help for these guys coming from the inner city. So I think that too, with mental health, as far as setting boundaries, meetings with these parents and the support system, uncle and auntie, to say, hey, you got to protect this kid. You can't just keep pulling from them and pulling from them. And mental health, as far as the kid, I'm not going to say young man or young woman, communicating that with the people that they love dearly, to say, I love you, but please don't pull at me. I'm 18, I'm 19, I'm 20, I'm 21, because now I have to worry about trust funds. Now I have to worry about life insurance. Now I have to worry about credit utilization. Your enterprise, it's hard. You got to learn about LLCs, INCs. Oh my God. So I think for the new culture, financial literacy, mental health, boundaries, in addition to this new normal, has to be implemented, in your opinion. But I like it. I love it. Get a piece of the pie because it's only right. We're in a capitalist society, especially a country. These kids have gifts, which I was one of them. Gevin, you moved around. You know the drills we went through. It's a gift. I'm all for it.
And and it's funny, Jerrell, because that actually leads into the next question, which is about your journey to the NFL. Because to your point, like even in high school when kids say, "Oh, I'm gonna play in college and then I'm gonna go pro," the reality that is that everybody wants to have that Tom Brady career. Everybody wants to play for 12 years. But the reality is the average NFL career is what, like 3 years?
3-4 years.
Yeah. Something like that anyway. So it's not, the preparing for the rest of your life after football. That's something we're going to get into with you in a little bit, but it's such a good reminder and such an important reminder that that's not, your journey doesn't end when you're 20, even 23, 24, 25 years old. Like your life, hopefully, God willing, is long, and that's going to be part of your story, but that's not going to be the end of the book. And so I think it's so important to get people to set up for that. So all right, so let's go there. So, you've got to reference the program, one of my favorite lines, starting defense, place at the table. You've got, you get there, you get to Nebraska, you really, you're showing out, you're balling out, you're an incredible player. And then tell us, what was it like as you were ending your career there and as you were thinking about your journey to the NFL? What was it like on draft day? What was it like to do those visits? And then how did you actually end up on an NFL roster?
Okay, yeah, so good. This is the low lights, but it's a good light. It wasn't. I was in the. I'm bringing up Shador Sanders and all the controversy.
Sure.
I was in the draft when Eli flipped.
2004 draft. Yeah,
right.
I was in that draft. So to try to answer your question, my first experience, I was watching the draft with my family. I'm like, can you do that?
Yeah, right.
I'm like, damn.
Yeah, right. Because he got drafted. He got drafted by the Chargers, but he didn't want to play.
He and Archie are like, Archie is like, my son is not playing for the Chargers.
I didn't know. I was boy, that's all. I said, man, this people, my grandmother and my Pop Warner coach. I'm like, that's a whole nother level right here. I didn't know. So, and to answer that question, leading in. Like I said, my NFL journey started early, but I locked in on it after the Rose Bowl when they start to kind of give you your draft, not projection. It's a list that says, hey, you're a prospect. And after the Rose Bowl, I became a legit prospect because when you do your off-season training at schools like Nebraska, maybe Penn State, VTech, Syracuse, Rutgers, D1, especially like Michigan now and Alabama, they come to pro day. They don't do they do Indianapolis, then they come to pro day to give a second look. And sometimes the underclassmen get a look too because the scouts stick around. And I ran my 40. This was after the Rose Bowl because Eric Crouch is coming out. So
what was your 40 time?
When I came out, it was 4.43. That's documented. It's documented. I think I hit him with a 4.5 just to get warmed up. Then I did a 4.43. I was 6'3", 207. Burning. Yeah, 12-inch broad jump, 39.5-inch vertical. But I trained night and day. And shout out to CES Sports, Chip Smith, Duluth, Georgia. That's another thing leading up to. So I became a prospect. Didn't really play a lot my junior year, but my senior year, to your point, I switched to football. Okay, you're a safety, but Coach Pelini. Shout out to Coach Pelini and Marvin Sanders. They switched to what's called a hybrid. Hybrid is what you're seeing now with when Charles Woodson ended his career. That's what he played in Green Bay.
Now one of the all-time greats, Charles Woodson.
Right. Yep. It's a nickel linebacker safety hybrid.
Right. Yeah.
And Tiki Barber kind of played it, so I had to mimic Tiki because a new staff came in, defensive staff came in. So when I played that, I had 2 interceptions. Only had about maybe 80 tackles because I had to divide my time between that and special teams.
Yeah.
But because of that, I was 6'3" and I could cover the nickel, which was 5'11". I can play the back and I switched to safety, but I also blitzed a lot.
Yeah.
So my film showed everything. And that's how I'm like, okay, now I'm on the radar, especially Tampa Bay, Chicago, all the Tampa 2 defenses leading in as my senior year progressed. Plus, it helps when your teammates are balling. We had the number 1 defense in the country. Our weak side linebacker, DeMario Williams, is just playing out of his mind. Our strong side linebacker is playing. A young Barrett Root, who's now the linebackers coach with the Falcons.
Yeah.
He's a young freshman doing his thing. Fabian, our left corner.
Fabian
Washington, he's on the left. Pat Ricketts, who had about 5 interceptions. And Dave, he was a white corner. So I'm saying that I love Pat because that got us more attention.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like, what the heck is this white corner? So
him and Jason Sehorn are like the only 2 I could think of.
So that gave us Pat Ricketts. That gave us even more marketing.
Yeah,
Cooper DeJean.
Right, Cooper DeJean. Cooper DeJean.
Right,
exactly.
And then we had Josh Davis,
exciting whites.
I mean Josh Bullocks and Daniel Bullock, the Bullock twins. Josh had 10 interceptions. And Daniel came on the map. Daniel's now the safeties coach, I believe, the 49ers. So I had all these guys around me doing great. They came to see them. Lonell McPherson, our defensive, we had so many, and Jamal Lowe was balling at quarterback. So they come to see all these guys ball, and then they say, who's number 31?
That's right.
we don't see a 6'3" nickel. That's very odd.
Right.
What is this guy doing? And he's playing gunner, and he's blocking field goals, and he's running down on kickoff, and he's whoa.
Right.
So I go into it. I don't get voted into any All-Star games because I was only started one game. That's another. I only started one game my whole college career. I didn't get invited to the combine, but me and Jamal signed with the same agent, Jamal Lord. That's like my brother, is my roommate for 4 years, the quarterback who came. He came in after Eric Crouch. So I go into that, go down to CES Sports in Duluth, Georgia, and I just train like a madman. And
again,
yeah. So I put on all this, and
this time football.
Right. I'm predicted to be a strong safety to an extent, but then I go run a 40 at my pro day, and it switched to, wow, this kid can play corner. So Green Bay really loved me. Chicago kept me afterwards forever after the pro day, interviewed me. I mean, the phone was ringing off the hook again. And then Green Bay flew me in for a visit. San Diego flew me in for a visit. Tampa Bay called a few times. Chicago called the phone. And then, of course, the Eagles brought me in. And that's when I got nervous. I was like,
that's when you saw Randall Cunningham, larger than life.
Right. And then going into the draft, you're predicted he's a day 2 guy because it was 2 days when I was there. And late round pick, maybe undrafted. But my mom could tell you, we had a moment. In the 4th round, I got my first call.
Wow.
From Mike Tomlin. He called he called the 215 number in the hood. And he wanted to draft me, but he says, hey, man, I'm not a coordinator yet, a D coordinator yet. I'm not a GM yet. I don't have power. I'll pick you up right now. So stay tuned. I'm trying. I hope he remembers that when I run into him, because I was like, bro, you had me on cloud 9. And we hung with the phone, and then you hear, yeah. My name,
Next
right?
The pick is in.
Tampa Bay goes, Tampa Bay goes across. I remember I said, that's not me. And I was a nervous wreck. And the next, I got more calls in the 6th round, the 7th round. But teams were calling, but they said, we're probably not going to get you. Let's make you a priority free agent. I think Shedeur Sanders went through that. Shedeur Sanders was like a priority guy.
But you didn't get any prank calls.
You said what?
You didn't get any prank calls.
No, thank God. I would have. Oh my God! I empathy for them. I would have. My family would tell. I would have passed out. Don't do that. I'm already a nervous wreck. So we were going to go with the Steelers in the free agency block because I really liked the organization. They were chiming in early. They were calling the house like a college recruit. My mom, everyone, my family can drive in from Philly to Pittsburgh. Cool, but then Baltimore called. I had a one-on-one workout with Baltimore, me and another D lineman, Patrick Kabungo. So Baltimore I really liked because I loved I had family in Maryland. Again, family can come see me in Bmore, Ed Reed, Ozzie Newsome. I just said, I said, wow, this kind of fits. And the head coach came from the Eagles, who I knew he's a special teams coach, so I'm like, okay. But then we said, we're going to go to Baltimore. And right at the last minute, Buddy Nix, the assistant GM from the San Diego Chargers, chimes in, clicks over and says, hey, we'll give you a little bit more extra money. Again, my signing bonus was only like $2,000, $3,000, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll give you another $1,000. And we have young DBs. Marty Schottenheimer loves them. We drafted his D lineman. They already had 2 other Huskers. The weightlifting coach was a Nebraska alum. I mean, they're just selling me quickly. And we're like, you know what? This makes sense. And we signed with San Diego in the free agency block. And by a half hour after the 7th round, I was done. Signed, sealed, delivered. Go to San Diego. Yeah, went to San Diego, undrafted free agent. Hat number 27 was sitting in my locker. And surprisingly, I wasn't nervous. I was ready. Honestly, I'm not trying to be cocky. I was like, ready for this.
Yeah.
And I went out there and I approached it like a veteran. And it obviously paid off. I made the team. So.
Wow. That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
So we're in the NFL phase of your career right now through this conversation. I'm wondering, do you have any just absolutely crazy stories from your playing days? Maybe something that you look back and maybe it was in the locker room or something that happened on the field and you're like, I just can't believe that happened.
I'll say 1, 2. Tim DeWhite I looked up to at Iowa when he was there. He's a football track guy.
Oh, yeah.
My first fight in training camp was with him. That was the irony.
Mm.
I'm swinging and punching, and I'm like, oh my God, it's one of my heroes.
Yeah, right.
That
took
was
back
surreal.
he was a returner for the Falcons in the Super Bowl and took back a touchdown.
Correct.
Yeah.
It was like one of my heroes.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
like,
he
I'm
was
actually.
Yeah, he was
That's how
impressive.
real the NFL is. You're
Yeah.
fighting for a spot. You're fighting
Right.
against veterans.
Yeah.
Hey, you're my hero. But
Yeah.
we got to go. We got to go at it. And then the irony, my first active game, I was on practice squad the first couple of weeks, and then I got bumped up. And one of my muses was Charles Woodson. So I'm lining up on kickoff. I'm not what's called R3. Behind me is Tim Dwight at R2, and standing behind him on the sidelines, nodding at me, was Charles Woodson for the grading
Unbelievable.
on Halloween.
Oh my God.
That was I went downfield. I made the tackle, but it was like a dream. I didn't.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, okay, I'm here now.
I'm
Chill
here,
out.
right.
And then, but I would say my family knows this. So many things. I had a blizzard in Cleveland in which we won. We clinched the AFC West Championship. I have a lot of family in Cleveland. My family drove up from Philly.
Mhm.
Negative 10 degrees blizzard. And at halftime, my family leaves. So I came out the locker room, tailor-made to fit suit, cigar. We clinched the AFC. My family's gone.
Gone. Oh
And
no.
they went back to it was too cold for the elders and for them. And I'm not going to blame them. I wanted to leave with them. So that's one. It was cold. And lastly, I was traded briefly to the Chicago Bears. I got there on like a Wednesday or Thursday or something. And I went to practice. Nathan Vasher picked me up. We go out in Chicago. I'm not even there 24 hours. And other than my teammates, the first person I ever met in Chicago, other than my teammates, I hope he remembers this one day, was Michael Jordan. And yeah, Michael's in at a spot on Lakeshore Drive, smoking a cigar. He had his brown turtleneck on. I don't get starstruck, no, except for that. What the heck? I never get nervous. The Eagles visit and seeing him and meeting him. He says, "Hey, what's your name?" And I'm like, "Well, my name is Jerrell Pippens." And he immediately his marketing, "Oh, Pippens, that's a good name in this city." Brain just goes right into business. You should use that. I said, "Yeah, I do want to get into TV and things like that." I'm talking a mile a minute because I'm so nervous. And
Right.
he's like, "Yeah, Pippens, use that, man. Oh, good Nick." He's just thinking of all these things. I'm like, yo, his brain, even in celebrating, he's always on, you know.
Yeah.
And he said,
That's
you're
crazy.
gonna do good in this town, man. He shakes my hand, and I'm not even processing. I'm like, oh my freaking God, that was him, and so that was my.
That was you're like, okay, we're here now.
Yeah,
We're in
we're
Chicago.
here.
We're in Chicago. We're in Chicago.
I don't know. I don't want to curse, but I'm a grown man now.
Yeah.
This is real.
Yeah,
world.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is the real world, bro. You're now like rubbing elbows
Yes.
and talking marketing with Michael Jordan on Lakeshore Drive in Chicago.
Yeah.
You're a pro.
You're not just
So
a
I
kid
was-
from Philly anymore. Not just that
No.
kid anymore.
Playing
I said,
Pop
this is-
Warner.
No, this is business. So that was my moment right there, I think.
Wow.
That's a crazy story, and it's a perfect segue to the next question that I wanted to ask you, Jerrell. Speaking of Michael Jordan, you also mentioned Charles Woodson, just these all-time greats, in their respective sports. You played with the Bears and with the Chargers, like you just said, with and against some legendary players. And I'm curious, during those years, your time in the league, who would you say is the best player that you played with, and who's the best player you played against?
Oh my goodness, that's a tough. Because I played with I played with like 4 Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say, you could put LaDainian in there. You can put Antonio
LT?
Gates.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna be honest, because of practice and we had to take a lot of reps against each other, man. I said one of the best was Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because we had to go at it in practice.
Right.
I'm a DB. He's a safety. I'm sure some of my friends would vouch. This is when Phillip was behind Drew Brees,
Right.
proving
Mhm.
himself. He was a gym rat. He was feisty. He was talking because this was his game day. He was like, I got to use this
Right.
because Drew Brees is the man. And I saw Phillip's excellence at 3:30 in the afternoon, man.
Yeah.
on a Wednesday or Thursday, man. We're out there just balling, man. And that because for us, we're not going to play a lot or at all on Sunday.
Right.
I
This
would
is
say
your
Phillip.
time. That's such a good
Phillip,
answer.
man. Yeah, Phillip. I mean, everyone saw it. This is his 35 years in the NFL, but I saw it in practice. This guy is going. I mean, we're going at it. So I would say Phillip Rivers, and you got your Urlachers, you got your Mike Browns. I would say against Phillip with Phillip Rivers against. Oh man, I'm gonna have to probably. Oh my goodness. I know I didn't get any real scrimmage downs, but actually seeing Randy Moss in living color. You know he's with the Raiders. That I've never saw a guy that big move that fast. And and also I was on practice squad, but I was on the sidelines. I traveled with them. Just really quick. Michael Vick, we were at the Georgia Dome. That's when Georgia Dome was the Georgia Dome with Michael Vick. It was like I said, "Are we in the?" And you know, Gevin, you grew up on it, so I'm like, "Are we at a game or the nightclub?" It was like a nightclub. And when he got introduced, this was like,
Yeah.
whoa!
Yeah.
It was like wrestling or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
yes.
this was,
yes.
know. And I played with Eric Crouch, a Heisman Trophy guy.
Right,
but I'm like,
Eric Crouch, Heisman Trophy winner. Played with some good guys.
Right, but Michael in Atlanta, and he did this thing. Our safety was pretty good. TK, who's now Terrence Kill, now deceased, God rest his soul. But he was back in the deep third. And Michael Vick, you know, he played baseball too.
Yes.
Michael Vick threw a deep ball, and but he just went like this with his wrist.
Yeah.
Kinda like
just flicked it.
Oh, he had a gun.
It.
Yeah.
And of course, they're like, how did you let the receiver caught the ball for like a 70-yarder? They scored, but still, how did you let him get back there? And I think TK and those guys were like, yo, I didn't think because you're trained when their shoulders are back.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bomb. When their shoulders are down,
it's going to be a short pass, intermediate. Yeah.
He threw it with his shoulders down, flicked the wrist. We looked at the film Monday, and I'm in living color. We're like, how the heck did he throw a 70-yard bomb? And we can see what the safety saw. Like, there's no
flick of the wrist.
No,
with flick of the wrist.
It's like it came out of his hip, you know. And so I would say that was a real moment to see that. Like, what?
Oh, of course.
How?
I think Mahomes does a little bit of that today.
Yes, you're correct. Mahomes.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few of those guys. Well, I mean, but just in terms of raw talent, like, I mean, I even remember one overtime, you know, Michael Vick saw like a linebacker turn away from him and just took off and ran for like 50 yards for the winning touchdown. Because in terms of just like raw, like arm strength, speed, all of that, like, you know, what young Michael Vick was just, I mean, I still to this day have never seen anything like it. It's funny.
There was Lamar Jackson, there was Michael Vick.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny. It's funny, Jerrell, that you talk about Phil Rivers, because, you know, just before you were talking about how Eli Manning didn't want to go to the Chargers into the draft, and he ended up getting traded to the Giants for Phillip Rivers. And so it's funny that like that trade ended up having these two legendary quarterbacks come out of it, and you ended up playing with one of them, and that obviously worked out. I mean, San Diego didn't end up winning a championship, but obviously great quarterback, legendary Hall of Fame quarterback for the Chargers. So,
and I played against Eli at Ole Miss. We played in the Independence Bowl down here for us. Yeah, I played against him. So that's why I said, in living color, I saw him. So both of them, you know, but yeah, I would say just from being in practice, Phillip Rivers was always like,
that's an awesome answer. Such a good answer. So tell us about, you know, you referenced this before, but tell us about the end of your NFL journey. We've heard other folks talk about how like athletes die two deaths, like one at the end of their life, but one when they feel like their career in sports is coming to an end. So what was that like for you, and what was your mindset at that time?
Well, to sum it up, I'll go back to where I trained Gevin at Top Dog. There was a coach named Christy Gevin who helped me with that death situation. Because I was depressed, Gevin, when I was training. Probably didn't know that. Christy saw it though. I know that I was yelling and screaming and having fun. Because honestly, you guys were my outlet. But Christy saw while I was eating lunch and all, like, something's wrong. My career, I was a guy that was a mystery. Like, does he play corner? No one can figure me out. And I played in like 9 active games my rookie year, some practice squad, but I didn't know I exhausted my practice squad eligibility. I didn't know what the heck that was. So when I got cut by San Diego, I was traded to the Bears, played played a little bit there, ended up back with San Diego because they really liked me. And they cut me again. And I actually started acting in that offseason of '06. I was an extra in a Spike Lee video from Mariah Carey. And I was in a spec commercial for Nike because I said to myself, I got to do something else. And I had the bug bit then, but I went into '06, got cut. In between all that, I worked out for like every team you could think of because I was a 6'3" guy who was fast. And to sum it up, Seattle finally told me what happened. I said, what's going on? I've never been in trouble. I had good grades. I graduated with, why are you not signing me? I almost broke down. Like, what the heck is going wrong? Because they said they love me. And they were like, we really want you, but Jerrell, you don't have any more practice squad eligibility, but we can't convince the GM to sign you on active squad because you have too much experience for practice squad. You have too little experience for active. But that means we have to cut a guy making $500,000. You got to ask this guy to move his family for you. You don't have enough experience for us to do that yet. If we can sneak you in on practice squad, oh, you're here. Now that rule has changed, but when I was literally sleepless in Seattle. That's when like some depression started. So I was able to recover near the end. I was done with football. Then the Washington now Commanders called me. Louis Riddick called me himself, worked me out himself. And Louis Riddick was a former DB. So when he says, okay, you got it, he played with Dion, worked me out, signed me in the offseason. We worked out an apartment situation with Washington in the offseason. I went there. I said, bet. But then in the offseason, they drafted Landry first round. And then at the time, the late, great Sean Taylor was going to hold out. So now they got like $100 million or whatever safety group. Jerrell, you got to go. I leave there. I go to Canada for a little bit. I knew in Canada this is over. And I think I come back down. I work at Top Dog where Gevin, youth athletes, but I'm training with Gevin and them. Gevin, your group, I trained you guys. 18-year-olds came in to train. I was training with them, and they were like, yo, you got to play again. I'm still in it. I come back out. I do end up playing one more year of arena, but then I'm like, this is over. I played arena ball in Houston, and I said, I got to end this. And I took a career aptitude test, a few of them, and they all came back TV and film. And that's when I called my cousin, who's a counselor for lawyers, and we went through how do we do this. And the most important thing he asked me, he says, Jerrell, why do you want TV and film? I said, well, the aptitude test says I'm good. My family has a history in storytelling. My mom loves theater. I'm going to go see The Wiz in about next week in Philly. My great uncle was a ballet dancer. My great cousin was in silent black films in the 1920s. My grandmother's a trained pianist. My brother did Freedom Theater. Yeah, that's a huge part of the legacy. And I leaned back on that and got into broadcasting and trying to make a long story short. And then the broadcasting kind of had a ceiling because I didn't have a dynamic career. Went to a showcase for acting, and they told me I did Willie Beeman, a scene. Willie Beeman is in the kitchen with Al Pacino. I did that monologue the way I would do it. I move out to LA and I start my journey like really seriously. In 2012, I landed a commercial, and I said, "This is it. This is it." And it's been lowlights, highlights, humbling. I checked but in the middle of that, I did go through depression. Christy, who I worked with, who was a colleague.
Yeah, shout out Christy Watkins. Yeah,
Christy Watkins was getting her master's in therapy and pulled me into the office and said, "Jerrell, you got to have a funeral." I'm like, "Well, hey, no, hey, I'm alive." No,
wow.
She said, "You had that funeral for your career. I can see your." I still watch football. You didn't notice that, Gevin. I did not watch football with my colleagues.
Wow.
Couldn't watch college football. Couldn't I? She noticed I kept getting up in the second quarter. Couldn't do it.
It's too painful.
I was depressed.
You couldn't bear to see your teammates continue to play the game that you love so much, which you knew you still could play.
You knew it, and you see ESPN, 80 million, and I was a 6'3" corner who at one point Chicago pulled me to the side and said corner safety. Safety's on the tip of my tongue, but at the time Nnamdi Asomugha signs his 80, 90, $100 million deal. He's 6'3", corner / hybrid. Charles Tillman is now about to follow suit. Peanut. Peanut
Tillman. Y'all played together, right?
Together, yeah. He's the opposite. I'm taking reps with Peanut. Peanut's about to sign his deal like any day. They're like, Jerrell, you're literally a $50 to $100 million man. Do you know what that's like in your early 20s to be told that?
Yeah.
That's some White House stuff. That's some United Nations.
We wish.
If only.
Right. No, I'm just saying that's some general. That's some like, I'm from the inner city, bro. I'm from the block. This is generational wealth they're talking.
Yeah.
But it's all monopoly. But this is your appraisal. And when it didn't work out, my brain, I don't think it's common for the brain to go through that. From what I learned, like, my cousin said, how does it feel? I said, it's like you're on a roller coaster. You wait 2 hours at Six Flags, which is about to close this year. I got to go to Six Flags. I got to make it. Wait 2 hours to get on a roller coaster. You get on, and 5 minutes is over. Then you get off, and your equilibrium is off. And you're like, yo, this is over already. So I begin to battle back through therapy. The NFL offers the therapy sessions, reading my books, and actually discovering who the heck is Jerrell Pippens? What is my reason? And I felt that my cousin asked me, why do you want to do TV and film? I said, the world needs help. Back to representation with Randall Cunningham and now Michael Vick. And how I look at Denzel and Mahershala Ali and the stereotypes people may have about Black men and Black women or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, yo, I can do something globally with this imagery and change people's lives. And that's why I do this. That's why I do the same thing I did with you guys, Gevin, the motivational, whatever. And I still do that on the side to supplement the income. I enjoy it, but the long-term goal is, if you see Idris Elba, Mahershala, whatever they're doing, Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, that's me because of the impact you can have on people. You're still the captain. You're still motivating. And I feel sports is storytelling. Look at what I just told you about my life. That it's story. So I fought the depression and to answer your question, but thank God the NFL was a big, had survivor's guilt, had and all that. No, I'm so much in a happier space. Acting is like therapy. Shout out to Gevin and you guys. You guys were my therapy. You probably didn't know that, but you guys, to kids, nothing's impossible. To adults, oh man, you can't do that. Oh man, it's too cold. It's too hot. Oh man, usually you don't go from baseball to the White House. Who does that? Dave, just keep playing baseball. You're lucky to be here. There's no way you're going to be in front of Michelle Obama. But a kid would be like, why not? You can go to the moon with a baseball. And so Gevin and those kids were like, that's why I went back into football for 1 year. They're like, why not? Coach, you're Superman. Adults are like, you're done. The kids are like, heck no.
Right.
know?
But at the same time, and I know time is running out, but I hope you realize the impact that you had on us too. You spoke about the impact that we had on you and the ways in which we made you feel like you could do what you thought you couldn't do. You also helped me realize that I could do things that I didn't think I could do either. I never saw myself as an athlete or even an athletic person. I was pretty chubby when I first came to Top Dog Sports.
You were, but
you can say it.
Yeah, but I never let you do that as an excuse, though, did I?
No, never. You had me out there running cone drills, running ladders, throwing the football, running 40s, lifting, doing the sled on my back, things I did not know were possible for me to do, especially at that age.
Yep, right.
So you helped me realize my potential, and little did we know you were struggling with that yourself. But I just want to say, now that we're all here together, thank you for that. And thank you on behalf of all of the young people who you poured into when you didn't think you had anything left to pour.
Man, you got to get sponsored by Kleenex. I appreciate that, man. But you guys, and I still, as an actor, I'm still like a child. I need to grow up one day, maybe, but I'm still immature in that. You have to reason, you have to be responsible, but I'm very unreasonable because I still have a childlike exuberance when it comes to goals. And that's why I do what I do. And I think we all kind of had to have that. You guys came in an administration that my grandmother cried when Barack had oath. Yeah. They didn't think it was possible. We didn't.
Right.
Look at what happened to you guys.
Yeah.
Something impossible.
Yep.
Yeah.
we thought, and I'm not going to get political here. I'm just going to say, hey, just pray for our country and our world. And I hope people can start to evolve and change. And like you said, like a kid, color outside the lines, man.
Yeah.
Believe,
Right.
So I'm glad I poured that out to you, and I hope to do that for more around the world through this
No,
platform.
that's so important.
Thank you, Coach. And
Not a
it
problem.
has been amazing. I know you say your acting career is still young, but it's been amazing to see you build up your IMDb page and to see you on screen with Vivica A. Fox. That was awesome. I watched that movie, The Wrong Roommate. That was so cool.
That's one of those late night joints that come on, and I always get a text at like midnight, like cousins or family. What are you doing on a Wednesday night watching? Dude, I saw you on, it's the most random, but that's how you start off. Brad Pitt, all of these guys.
Yeah, everybody. Right, and you see them. Oh man, look at them! Look at look at they were.
Your little
Yeah.
And then you see them on Black Panther. You're like, yo, I remember they started on, and I had to humble myself for that. My ego got in the way early on. I said, I quit about 10 times because of my ego. I'm still $100 million man. What do you mean? No, you know who I am. And I had to humble myself, and it's rewarding. I'm on my way to a film, the Tribeca, after this right now, just to get more motivation and rub some more elbows.
Well, I can't wait to say that I knew you when. Even though when I knew you was already after you played in the NFL, which is just insane. We're going to have to, we'll text you, Coach, the 3 questions that we always ask all of our guests about favorite movie and all of that, because I know you have to run.
Okay.
Unless you have 30 seconds?
I have about 5 minutes.
All right.
Okay. All right. Do it, Dave.
We'll hit you fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Lightning round after.
Question 1. Favorite movie or TV show, sports or not?
Oh my goodness. You got Malcolm X movie.
Yes. Love that movie.
You can say sports is in there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my God, Rudy.
Oh yeah.
Rudy.
Yeah. Talk about an important journey, overcoming adversity. Rudy.
Right. And they called me and said, congratulations, you got it. And that was my Rudy moment. So yeah, Rudy.
Yeah.
Rudy, Forrest Gump, Malcolm.
Oh,
nice.
All the characters.
Great list. All right.
Yeah.
Music. What gets you feeling up when you're down? What's the music that you turn to?
I'll say the latest after a while is Nipsey Hussle. When my grandmother passed, I listened to Double Up about 85,000 times. Something just I realized how important it is for production, what he used just in the instrumentals. But Nipsey Hussle, because of what he stood for, God rest his soul. And I'm still a 90s Biggie, Jay-Z, Nas.
Yeah.
I like contemporary hip hop. The clips are coming back. I'm having a moment. So I'm a mid 90s guy, and yes, mid 90s R&B. And I listen to old music. My mom was like, "What the heck? That old pimp 70s OJs." Because Philly,
OJs, yes.
Teddy Pendergrass,
yes.
Frankie Beverly and Maid.
Legends,
So,
Frankie
on a day like today,
Another Love
Gevin,
TKO.
Right. If you meet me on Sunday, Gevin, on the weekends, you'll be like, Coach, that's not hip hop. No, Gevin. This is grown folk music. That's why I listen on Sundays. I listen to all old music.
Oh yeah.
Well, on Nipsey, I'll be walking to class, walking to law school, and I'll be listening to like All My Life, Grinding All My Life.
Yeah. It's very theatrical, cinematic. Some of his, you can play it in movies. And
For sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All of that. Yeah. Luther Vandross, all that. Oh, I love that era.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that era. All right. And then last one, comfort food. When you're just in need of a comfort meal, what's that food that you turn to?
Hot glazed donuts from Krispy Kreme on my cheat day. I'm a workout fanatic. And oh man, I guess you could say sweet potato pie. My mom is listening. Anything my mom cooks at all. I'm not just saying this because my
mom's cooking.
My mom can cook her behind off, and I'm not just saying that.
No bias at all.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, of course not.
Anything my mom cooks is like comfort because she can cook. My future wife has a tough hill to climb. I would say comfort. Honey glazed donuts, my aunt's banana pudding, junk food, and anything my mom cooks is is spot on, and it's so loaded. To answer your question.
Oh, making me hungry.
Yeah,
Making me want to go home.
yeah.
Well,
Georgia,
Coach
yeah.
Jerrell, thank you so much. That's right. You're off to other engagements right now, so I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a full circle moment for me, and just so special to be able to partake in this conversation with you. And I can't wait for our listeners to hear what you had to say, and for them to hear what you have to say and see what you have to do on the big screen.
Oh yeah,
That's
you
right.
know it's coming. It's coming. And Dave, congrats on your transition from baseball to the White House.
Thank you.
And
thank you very much.
Gevin,
Don't get his head any bigger than it really is.
Yeah, no.
Gevin,
I'll like that.
We went from the sleds to the White House.
Hey.
I'm proud of you, Gevin. Hey, I'm yelling at you. Even Christy said, Jerrell, you gotta come on. They're not adults, and I'm like, they gotta get ready. Christy was the mama bear, Dave, of our group, of our trainers.
Yeah.
So she used to say, tone them down, Jerrell. They're kids. Nah. They got to get ready. And obviously it worked.
Yeah, shout out her, shout out Lou, shout out Lou, George, Eric Benson, Coach
Jonathan Cox, who I'm working for him with now. Jonathan has his own company. JC is here. So yeah, we got to shout out those guys.
Man.
Yeah, they all like, Jerrell, calm down. No, got to get them. Now look at him.
I went on to you, bro. I went on to you. All right. Take care, Jerrell. Thank you.
And we are back after the wonderful conversation with the wonderful Jerrell. And Gevin, I'm just so grateful that you reached out and you brought him on, because I thought that conversation was fascinating for a few reasons. But what stood out to you? Let's just do a couple quick spotlights before we get into the highlights from the sports week.
Totally. I mean, awesome conversation with Jerrell. It was a no-brainer to reach out to him. I mean, he's an inspirational guy in so many different ways. And I think our listeners probably all got that through that conversation with him. You know, I think one thing, and I enjoyed talking football and really delving into the ups and downs of his playing career. But I think if we had more time, I wish we could have gotten more into the post-playing career aspect of his life. And he talked about some of the depression and the mental health challenges that he was experiencing, even when I knew him. You know, I was transported mentally back to those days when I was at Top Talk Sports and he was training me and training my friends and had us running drills and sleds and running and all of that. And he was just this upbeat guy who, you know, emanated this amazing energy. And I knew he'd played in the NFL. I was like, wow, this dude's like probably like on top of the world, you know, and he's handsome and he's fit and all of that, peak physical fitness. And little did I know that he was behind closed doors in private, suffering with something as devastating and which can be as deadly as depression. And, you know, he mentioned that Coach Chrissy, one of the other coaches there, saw what none of us could see and was able to help him through that. And, you know, he mentioned something about a funeral for his NFL career. So I don't know exactly what that entailed, but I would have loved to be able to ask him a little bit more about some of the coping mechanisms and the strategies, the tips that he used to pull himself out of that rut. You know, was it therapy that he sought? Were there other sort of techniques that he turned to? Because the truth is, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some of our listeners out there that could be former athletes going through what Jerrell was going through at the time, or they could just be, you know, dudes who studies show consistently, you know, time and time again, are dealing with things like isolation and depression and loneliness and anxiety and suicidal thoughts. And I would be willing to bet that a lot of them could really benefit from hearing just, you know, from Jerrell what it was that helped him through those times. So, you know, with unlimited time for our interview, I would have loved to have gone into that part of his story a little bit more, because it seems like he's doing a lot better than he was back then. He's reinvented himself and, you know, has sort of been resurrected now as an actor. And I'm so excited to see what he'll do next. But all in all, an amazing interview. But of course, would have loved to have gotten maybe a little bit more into the depression and sort of how he overcame it.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And, you know, I think it's funny. I really resonated with that because throughout my life, people have told me like I seem so upbeat and I'm so extroverted and I love talking to people and I like having like lots of friends. But even I have like, you know, can be hard on myself and can go through moments where I'm feeling very low. And So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. I mean, as soon as Jerrell started talking about that, I realized like, oh, you really just never know. It's just yet another example.
You never know.
What people are going through.
They say check on your happy
Totally.
friends.
Like you never know what people are going through. And
Yeah.
you're right. I wish in hindsight, I wish we could have gotten more into that, even though, I mean, it was just so fun to get it. I mean, it was like he was speaking to the core of my childhood memories when he's talking about Randy Cunningham. He's talking about the U, those Miami college football teams from the 90s.
Yeah.
And sometimes,
and the Rose Bowl.
And sometimes because I don't know everybody who's listening to us, sometimes I feel like I want to try to explain, he just referenced Eric Crouch. He won the Heisman Trophy as the quarterback in Nebraska. Or, he just referenced Eli Manning. Like, he said he didn't want to go to the San Diego Chargers. And so he forced a trade to the New York Giants. And in return, they got Phillip Rivers. And, I just... But you're right that as much fun as we have with these football memories, and it's part of why we want to talk to athletes, part of this as well is that we do want to spend some more time talking to people about those lowlights, how they ever overcome them, and really making it normal and acceptable, hopefully for people to recognize that everybody goes through struggles. Everybody has a hard time, and there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, it's a huge sign of strength to admit it and get help. So all right. Well, so those are some quick spotlights from a great interview, and with that, let's move on to the week in sports. Gevin, I'm actually going to start the highlights segment today with a low light from my week.
Not allowed,
which is a warning to our. It's a warning. It's a public service announcement, Gevin. It's for the good of the people. This is actually more of a warning to our listeners that if you go out to your car some morning and on the mat on the driver's side of the car, you see some torn up bits of insulation. You see some things that at first you might look down and say like, "Oh, is this leaded?" Like literally, Alyssa sent me a picture of it when she got in the car and said, "Did you eat something in the car really messily?" Because on the floor, on the driver's side mat. No, you know what, Gevin? I did not. But you know who did?
It turns out.
No, I don't think you want to. And I didn't want to either. But what it means if you see like a bunch of little bits of insulation on the floor of your car, what that might mean is that something is living in your car now.
Oh, hell no.
And in our case, it turned out to be a rat.
Do I want to see a picture of this?
I don't think that you do. I mean, if
wait. Sorry. So, how do you know that it was a rat? That's the question that I have. Has this been confirmed, or is this your suspicion?
It was my strong suspicion, but I took it to I like popped the hood and stepped back. I didn't see anything.
Yeah, no, I would have to stand way back.
I didn't see anything.
Like
I took it to a Valvoline.
100%.
I took it to a Valvoline, and I was like, "Hey, can you guys like just look under the car and make sure that there's nothing down there that hasn't chewed anything?" And they were like, "Nope, you're good." I took it to a car wash. I vacuumed out the car because I was like, "Okay, maybe it just came in.
You're brave.
Look
Dave.
For something." Look, Gevin, not all heroes wear capes. All right, I had to, but look, I was gonna look for it, and then I took it to I parked it somewhere else overnight, came back in the next morning, the insulation was back. So clearly,
at this point, I guess I would wonder. No, I'm gonna let you continue. I'm not even gonna, because I don't like where this is going. I don't like where this is going.
But I knew where it was going, which was we had a new resident in our car.
No.
And he had not been invited. And so I did indeed go to a hardware store. You weren't
like sleepwalking, maybe in the middle of the night, going out to the car, having a little snack?
No, Gevin. No. And I went out so I called a mechanic and I said, "What do I do?" And he said, "Bring it to me. Buy some traps on the way at a hardware store and leave it with me overnight and I'll take care of it."
Like we're saying mouse traps, rat traps, correct?
Correct. And Gevin, let me just say, I could show you a picture right now that he sent me at 6:30 a.m. the next day of what he discovered in the car the next morning. So again, quick PSA: do not, make sure that there are no like wrappers under your seats. Make sure that if you see any insulation chewed up in your car, you address that right away. Just a quick low light PSA for all of you out there who are listening, and a little bit of nightmare fuel for anybody who wants it.
Yeah, that's a new fear that you've just unlocked. Like, I never knew that I'd be afraid of a rat jumping out of my face while I'm driving my car.
Oh, I was, and as the whole time I was driving to the mechanic, that's what I was thinking is like, there is a rat that is like 2-3 feet from me right now.
Yeah, I would
like
have
in
to
this
put
dashboard.
on some sort of protective face gear. You know, what are those like face
no.
from the COVID days? That would have been on. Glasses would have been on. Like any
as
bear
I got in the
skin,
car, I just
no
said,
bear skin. All that's covered.
Look, is it true that out loud by myself in that car, I announced, little buddy, this is your last chance.
Whoa.
If you pop out right now, we're going to war. And I recommend that you get out of this car of your own volition before it's too late. This is a warning. Get out.
Okay.
And unfortunately, little buddy did not take that advice.
Okay, so here's the thing. So if I'm at the supermarket and I come back to the car, without fail, get in my car, I always turn around and just look to make sure there isn't a person like sitting or hiding in the back seat. I think I saw some show when I was young, ID or whatever.
Okay.
I always do that. But now you're telling me that I now need to also not only check to make sure there isn't a human waiting to attack me in my back seat, but I also need to check the floor of my car to make sure there isn't any insulation torn up on the floor, such that a rat might be living in my car.
Okay. You've nailed it. And, I will not show the gory rat photo. I will just show the that photo
just
of what the insulation looked like.
Right,
just
this is what I'm talking about. I wouldn't know what insulation
in my car that's what I'm talking
in the first place.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. If you see that, problems.
And so they bit through the insulation to get into the body of the car. Is that the thought, or do you think there wasn't enough food, so they were eating the insulation? Oh, okay.
I think he was just having himself a time in the car, and like all good things, it came to an end.
Well, I propose that we just observe a very brief second of silence for little buddy.
Okay. All right. All right. And with that, Gevin. Honestly, in the highlights portion of this week in sports, it's been very hard for me to talk about highlights in baseball this year because your team and my team, the Braves and the Red Sox, it has been rough out there, Gevin.
It's been real bad.
There have not been many highlights to talk about. Rafael Devers having a great year for the Red Sox. He's probably going to set career highs, in home runs, and he's our star third baseman.
Yeah,
or he was. Now he's our star DH. Right. That's been an issue
very
this
happy
year.
About that,
yeah, he's not. But yeah, it's just I was so excited. The Red Sox have been so hard to watch for the last few years, and I was so excited to go to this year and be like, "Oh, we finally got a good team. Yeah. We finally signed a bunch of free agents." And they just, every game this week, but before the first inning was over, we were down 4-0. Then we were down 5-0. Then we were down 5-0 in Yankee Stadium after the first game. It's just been rough out there. And same with the Braves. We're up 10-4 going into the 9th inning this week.
You don't have to talk about it.
And you ended up giving up 7 runs at the top of the 9th inning to lose the game. It's just it's like every day these teams are finding new ways to lose. So not too many highlights to come out.
I know.
That's right. Not too many highlights to talk about. Hopefully, hoping for better times. Baseball has been really fun this year. The Detroit Tigers have the best record in baseball, which is just cool because they're these super teams. The LA Dodgers, the Yankees, the Mets.
Yankees. Yeah.
Yeah, they're these teams because there's no salary cap in baseball, so they have these massive payrolls, huge contracts.
Definitely.
And look, the Red Sox have a $200 million payroll themselves. They're not, they're not a poverty franchise.
Right.
But one of the things that's cool about baseball is that every year there are these smaller market teams like the Detroit Tigers, And, in the past, it was the Oakland A's, who are now the unnamed location A's, and or Tampa Bay. I mean, there's always smart teams that use their money wisely and draft really well and sign targeted free agents to help build out their roster who have these good runs. And it's really fun watching what the Tigers are doing and watching some of these other teams. And I'm just hoping that during the course of the summer, the Red Sox will make themselves good enough to continue to be worth watching, because I love watching baseball, just not this brand of baseball. But
Dave, let me say this though about the Tigers. Actually, I've seen them play in person. Let me say this: I think Detroit is a slept-on sports city. No
question.
I've seen the Tigers play there at their ballpark. I've seen the Lions play at Ford Field, and I believe that Detroit is the only, or one of the only, cities where all of their major professional sports team venues are within like a block or two radius of each other. And it's really awesome. I don't know if you've ever been to Detroit and seen the Lions or the Pistons or the Red Wings or the Tigers play, but that is a sports city, and they make it really easy to go to games downtown. And just the energy at the Lions game I went to, the energy at the Tigers game I went to, just super high, good vibes, happy for the Tigers that they're having this good season.
Yeah. I've been to Detroit. I was actually there. It was cool. We were in a motorcade with our former boss, Jamal Simmons, who is now on CNN and was communications director for Vice President Harris. And the motorcade went basically by his childhood house in Detroit.
Oh, that's cool.
And like that was a very cool moment to get to watch Jamal like look around at the streets where he like grew up playing ball and out on the street with his friends.
Totally.
And be driving through it on a presidential vice presidential motorcade. Like that was really cool. But
that's special.
No, I've always wanted to go. Detroit fans, like the fact that the Lions fans are still Lions fans after decades of that franchise. Struggling so much. Absolutely. And Detroit Pistons fans are very knowledgeable basketball fans. Like there's huge history there with the Bad Boy Pistons and that franchise. So no, it's very cool. And the Tigers have their own incredibly historic franchise. And so, it's cool it's cool to watch that happen. I just, I hope that that the Red Sox and the Braves can be part of that conversation going forward. But speaking of some smaller market franchises having some incredible seasons, Gevin, what else happened in sports this week?
I mean, Dave, I think the better question is what didn't happen in sports this week. Just one of the greatest sports weeks in recent memory. I know you want to talk a little bit about what's been going on in the NBA and the NHL, but we've had just some absolutely crazy first few games in the NBA and Stanley Cup finals. Even at the college level, we had a federal judge finally give the green light for colleges to pay their athletes, which I think is going to really change things significantly, more than things have already changed in college sports, in the years ahead. And where I want to start is we had Coco Gauff do something that no American tennis player has done in over 10 years, and that's win the French Open. And
that was crazy.
It was absolutely insane. I hope we can put the clip up of that final point in the championship match. She hit that winning shot and just dropped to the court. And I don't know, but just watching it, like I thought about just all of the work that she must have put in to get to that point. And we see some of it on the outside as fans, but only she knows all that he's actually endured on the inside. And behind closed doors, tennis is a grueling sport. And to see her achieve this level of success just makes me extremely proud. And I saw her play, I saw her play Naomi Osaka back in 2019 at the US Open here in Queens. And I mean, Coco was a baller back then, but to see her win this title, French Open, for the first time is just amazing. So congrats to Coco Gauff. She is the definition of dominance and of dynamism and determination. And now she's finally a French Open champion. So thank you to Coco for bringing the trophy back to the U.S. Dave, I saw your former boss and one of my heroes, Barack Obama, former President Obama, put out a great tweet congratulating her. Just something that really rallies a country together, knowing that Coco Gauff, an American, won the French Open and someone who we can all cheer for. So Coco, I hope you take some time to celebrate this win.
It was great.
Yeah. Dave, what's been happening over talk about the NBA and the NHL too.
Well, look,
game one in the NBA that I don't think anyone saw coming, even if you were watching the game.
No, except I will say, I mean, like for a year, after the Celtics won the championship last year, I would tell people, the best team that we played in our run last year, and we played the Heat, and yes, there were a lot of injuries last year, and unfortunately the injury bug bit the Celtics this year. But, we played great teams last year. We played the Heat, we played the Cavs, we played the Pacers, we played the Mavs. And I would tell everybody the best team that the Celtics played last year were the Indiana Pacers. And they lost Halliburton after a couple games in that series, but they still, they were a problem. They were great. They played a great brand of basketball. And so I
didn't go super well for them, but
no, but I've had a lot of respect for that team since then. And so when we talked about this last week and we were talking about, what could happen in the series, and I said sure, Thunder in 5, whatever, that makes sense, but don't count out those Pacers if they can do what they have been doing every series so far in the playoffs, and that is stage these miracle comebacks.
I know
in the fourth quarter, and when they were down by 15 in the fourth quarter in game 1. Once again, I was like, is that really going to happen again? Are they do 15-point leads in the fourth quarter in the NBA just really not matter anymore? And the answer is nope, they don't.
No, it's true. When you're playing against a team like the Pacers, who's been there time and time again and shown that they can win in moments like that, not only thanks to clutch players like Tyrese Halliburton, obviously having a player like him, a star like him, changes things, but they also have a team that is stacked at every position, and that comes together and plays, like you said, a brand of basketball that they can be down 15, 20 points, even in the fourth quarter, and still come back and win that game. And I think it's a testament to the kind of team they are. I heard when Halliburton and Pascal Siakam were walking back to the locker room, Siakam was like, man, he's like, we got so much work to do. We didn't even play that well. And I think that shows you a lot about their mentality and where their head's at. They just upset the Oklahoma City Thunder in game 1 in Oklahoma City, which is one of the craziest arenas. And they were already focused on improving on what they did not do well on in that game so they can build on that win and ultimately win this series. And that's why I think a team like them has a chance.
And for people who don't know, I mean, the first lead that the Indiana Pacers took in game 1 came with 0.3 seconds left in the game when Halliburton hit that shot. And
that was it.
I mean, it was one of those moments where, and I heard that actually these have been some of the lowest rated finals in 20, 30 years. And so for people who aren't watching, I know that Oklahoma City and Indianapolis are not the biggest markets in the country. But if you like basketball, if you want to watch it played at a high level, if you want to watch just great passing and great defense and great outside shooting, I feel like this series is just, I know that people say a lot of negative things about this era of basketball. I know that I'm biased because the Celtics won last year, but I don't know. I mean, I remember very clearly the mid 2000s when those Ben Wallace Pistons teams were winning games 78-72. That wasn't all that much fun to watch as a fan. I didn't find.
Dude.
Whereas now,
the game has changed so much.
Fun. It's changed so much, right? It's so different.
Short period of time. No, it's true.
So it's a great series. We'll see what happens. But I just more games like that, please. More games like coming down to the wire. And that's exactly what happened in the NHL too. But the first 2 games of Panthers Oilers in the Stanley Cup Finals went into overtime, and I just feel like as I saw somebody tweet or something after the second game, they said, I don't know why people are so excited about playoff hockey. If you want that kind of adrenaline rush, just jump out of a moving plane without a parachute. It'll be roughly as exciting. And it does feel like that. I mean, these games are crazy, and playoff hockey is just, when it's good, it's so good. And I just feel like the Oilers and the Panthers, this is just one of those classic series where it's 2 teams at the peak of their power, and it's great players on both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and again, as we say, it's a Canadian team with a Canadian star in Connor McDavid, who's just lightning quick.
Yeah.
Against these Panthers, who are the defending champions, and have Brad Marchand, who's been one of the greatest players of this era in hockey, along with Kachuk and the rest of these guys. I mean, it's just a great match. It's what you tune into sports hoping to see. So anyway, just again, just I feel like as sports fans, we've been very, very lucky.
Been very lucky.
But
and as a Hoosier, you know who I'm going to be cheering for, and as an American, you know who I'm going to be cheering for.
Yes, Gevin. Yes, I'm aware. All right. So getting into the NFL quickly. So our favorite, there's been a lot of like silliness on the internet because it's silly season in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers is going back to the Steelers. I guess I would just say like, good luck to them. For anybody who watched any Jets games last year, like we'll see how that goes. But our favorite, there were a lot of people were talking about JJ McCarthy, who's the new quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. How he's like set some record of touchdown passes thrown in off season, in the OTAs in the off season for the Vikings this summer. And I
didn't know they measured that.
And I'm not sure why they do, but it's so silly. But speaking of silly, our favorite NFL reporter, Dove, he tweeted an image, and I hope that we can put it up on the screen. But basically, it's an image of that he's titled. He doesn't attribute it to anywhere. He just says the GOAT of every sport, and it's just a picture of. I don't know, like like about nine people or 8 people walking into a stadium.
Wow.
And it's like one for all these different sports. So there's, I can give a couple away. So I'm pretty sure it's kind of hard to tell who some of them are, but like, I'm pretty
AI
sure
generated or something.
I think it is. So one of them for tennis is Serena Williams. I'm pretty sure that's her, and it's her walking into the stadium. So like, okay, fine, good one. For golf, it's Tiger. And it's like for a lot of these, it's at least
peak Tiger for sure.
Right, exactly. Like, and I can give away for the NFL, it's Tom Brady, the GOAT. Like, okay, right?
Okay.
Like,
okay, fine, fine.
Okay, but I just have a couple questions.
Peyton might be in the corner, maybe.
Watching Tom Brady. Yeah, sure. Okay, so but I did have two questions. So knowing that it's Dove, my questions for you, I guess, are twofold. GOAT of every sport. Who do you think Dove put in the picture, and who do you think it should be in the picture? So I'm going to ask you first about basketball. Who do you think is in this photo, and who do you think should be in this photo?
I mean, I don't think you're going to find anyone who would say anyone besides Michael Jordan should be listed as the GOAT basketball. But knowing Dove and knowing the troll that he is, I'm going to guess that he probably did not put Jordan in there.
Correct. And correct.
I'm correct. Yep. Okay, great. Who do I think he put instead? I mean, probably to get clicks, LeBron.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did.
Okay. Yeah.
So LeBron is in the photo. And look, it's not to say that like
he's one of the greats. Absolutely. He's one of the greatest ever played the game. His longevity is
absolutely
outstanding. I mean, the accolades, gotten all of them. He's won plenty of rings, and I don't want to take any of that away from him, but I don't think I would say that he at this point is the GOAT. I mean, Michael Jordan's the consensus there.
Right. And it'll be an interesting question. I mean, LeBron is one of the most complete players ever. Obviously he's done things that nobody else could ever do.
He's changed the game. Absolutely.
It's wild. What he's been able to do in his career.
Yeah.
But like, I think that's a tough sell. And then, well, the other one, for hockey, who do you think he put? No, he did not.
Okay.
Exactly. For hockey, he did not put Wayne Gretzky.
I guess Ovechkin or
correct.
Something.
He put Ovechkin, who again is a great hockey player. Nobody is debating that, but that's just a little silly. And I think obviously designed. It's just engagement farming, I think. It's just like trying to get people like us,
it's
like we're doing right now. It's him just getting us angry and it got us riled up. Okay, but the one I'm going to end with here, the most ridiculous one. Who do you think he put for baseball?
Okay, the way you're asking it, the way you framed it, clearly it's someone who does not even belong in the conversation.
Yeah.
So I don't want to offend the person whose name I'm about to say.
Right,
but it's clearly it's not Babe Ruth. It's not Hank Aaron. It's not Willie Mays.
Nope.
It's not Barry Bonds. These are guys who all have arguments, I think.
Oh, 100%.
Being one of the best players. It's none of them.
It's none of them.
I don't know. A-Rod?
Close. That actually would have been a better argument, I think.
Yeah.
No, he put Derek Jeter.
Okay, I'm done.
And like, look, I'm a Red Sox fan. I have the pennant above my head to prove it. I'm not trying to be a hater, but just like objectively speaking, Derek Jeter isn't even the best Yankee in the history of the Yankees. He's a great player. He was a great shortstop, not as good as he, I think, claimed to be toward the end of his career, but still, like great player. But the idea that he's the GOAT of baseball, I mean, just for reference, there's a statistic that people use these days in baseball. And I know that some of our listeners might be like, ugh, eye roll. Like, I don't want to talk about advanced baseball statistics. But I think a sign of a good statistic is like, if you put it in place and it basically matches with your instincts about who was the greatest, right? So the stat in baseball, you'll hear it called WAR. And what it means is wins above replacement. It's basically like, how much better were you than the average player? And it tries to add up like everything. So hitting, fielding, base running, or if you're a pitcher, same thing.
Yeah.
Pitching, whatever. And so in the history of baseball, the top player ever is Babe Ruth. By the statistic, he has 183 WAR.
Yeah.
And like number 4 is Barry Bonds. Number 5 is my choice for the GOAT, which is Willie Mays. Like, Willie Mays. I mean, I think he was probably the best defensive center fielder of all time.
Yeah.
And did it all. I mean, hit 29 plus home runs every year for, I think 11 years.
Yeah.
I mean, his career batting average is 301. I mean, Willie Mays, I think the argument starts there with him. If you don't think it's him, and I think you explain why.
Yes.
And you can make arguments, right? But like, again, this baseball list of all-timers, it includes Hank Aaron, Ty Cobb, Roger Clemens, and even back to the old days, like Honus Wagner, Stan Musial, Rogers Hornsby, right? Like the Williams of as a Red Sox fan, of course.
Right. Yeah.
Derek Jeter, Gevin, is on this list.
Okay.
96th.
Huh.
96th on this list.
That's about what I would expect.
Yeah, and like, it's so silly. But I figured I needed to discuss this with you this week because, and by the way, A-Rod is 16th on this list. And like, you can make arguments. You can make arguments about like, well,
again,
Jeter.
No disrespect. I'm just saying, like, he's not in the conversation as being the GOAT.
No,
like, objective.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely a great player, but not in the conversation of being the GOAT.
Totally. Those Yankees teams were incredible, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I think even if you asked Yankee fans, like, well, I don't know, like, Yankee fans are a special breed. But I think a lot of them would admit that, like, to say that Jeter is the GOAT and put aside the contributions to those teams of, like, Mariano Rivera, for example, would just beat up. Anyway,
but Babe Ruth is the greatest Yankee, for sure.
Yeah. Exactly.
So no one else on any of these even modern franchises, I think, would supplant him.
Exactly. It's so silly. But all right. So anyway, that's the game for this week. And
you're done, Dove. You're done.
It's another banger from our friend Dove. But all right. Well, thanks everybody again for tuning into our 10th episode. Thanks again for sticking with us as we tried a little bit of a different format this week. And
actually, tell us what you think. Leave a comment.
We'd love to hear that.
Like, actually reach out and tell us how you thought this new format worked or didn't work.
Totally. And then and we'll see you back here same time, same place next week.
Bye, everybody.